Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his face as he checked the cargo manifest one more time. His ship, the New Horizon, sat docked at Nexus Prime, the biggest trade station in this part of the galaxy. The place buzzed with activity. Aliens from dozens of different worlds walked through the wide corridors, talking in languages he was still learning to understand. 3 years had passed since humans joined the Galactic Coalition. Jake remembered how excited everyone was back then. Finally, humanity had friends among the stars. But the excitement had worn off quickly when they learned about all the rules and paperwork that came with being part of a galactic community. Jake loaded the last crate of Earth coffee onto his ship. The stuff was popular with the Zentari traders. They paid good money for it, and Jake needed every credit he could get. Running a small cargo ship wasn't easy, especially when you were competing with companies that had been doing business for thousands of years. A loud alarm suddenly echoed through the station. Jake looked up, confused. The normal busy sounds of the trade port stopped. People froze in place, looking around nervously. "Attention, all vessels," a voice announced over the speakers. "Unknown ships approaching the station. All civilians report to safe areas immediately." Jake's blood ran cold. Unknown ships usually meant pirates, or worse. He started running toward his ship's loading ramp, but stopped when he saw them. Dark, angular ships were dropping out of hyperspace around the station. They looked like black knives against the stars. The Krex Empire had found them. Jake had heard stories about the Krex from other traders. They were a warrior race that believed might made right. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they couldn't use. The Coalition had been fighting small battles with them for months, but nothing like this. The first shots hit the station's outer ring. The metal walls shook and the lights flickered. People started screaming and running in all directions. Jake watched in horror as several smaller ships tried to escape, only to be blown apart by Krex fighters. He needed to get out of here. Jake ran up his ship's ramp and headed for the bridge. His fingers flew over the control panel, starting the engines and preparing for departure. Through his window, he could see the battle raging outside. Coalition defense ships were fighting back, but they were badly outnumbered. Another explosion shook the station. This one was closer. Jake could hear metal groaning and tearing somewhere nearby. Emergency lights bathed everything in red. He was almost ready to launch when he heard something that made him stop. It was crying. A child was crying somewhere close to his ship. Jake cursed under his breath. He should leave now while he still could. Every second he waited made his chances of escape smaller. But that sound, it reminded him of Katie. His daughter had cried like that the night she died in the hospital, scared and calling for her daddy to make everything better. He shut off the engines. Jake grabbed a small blaster from his emergency kit and ran back down the ramp. The docking bay was mostly empty now, except for scattered cargo and debris from damaged ships. The crying was coming from behind a pile of twisted metal that used to be someone's transport vessel. He found her there, curled up in a ball behind a broken engine part. She was small, maybe 6 or 7 years old if she aged like humans. Her skin was pale blue and seemed to glow softly in the dim light. Delicate silver markings covered her arms and face like natural tattoos. Her large, dark eyes were filled with tears. A Viridian. Jake had never seen one in person before, but he recognized her species from the Coalition databases. They were known to be peaceful, intelligent, and deeply empathic. What was a Viridian child doing alone on a trade station during a battle? The girl looked up at him with those enormous eyes. She said something in her own language, then switched to broken galactic standard. "Please, help me. My family. They're gone." Jake looked around and saw the wreckage she had crawled out of. It was the remains of a passenger ship still smoking, from a direct hit. No one else could have survived that explosion. "Where are your parents?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Fresh tears rolled down her glowing cheeks. "Dead. All dead. The bad ships came and..." She couldn't finish the sentence. Another explosion rocked the station. This time, pieces of the ceiling started falling. Jake made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "Come with me," he said, holding out his hand. "I have a ship. We can get out of here." The girl hesitated for a moment, then grabbed his hand with both of hers. Her skin was warm and smooth, like touching silk. As soon as they made contact, Jake felt a strange sensation, like someone was gently touching his mind. It didn't hurt, but it was deeply personal. She was reading his emotions. Viridians were empaths. She could feel his determination to protect her, his sadness about his own lost daughter, and his fear that they might not escape in time. "You're safe," she whispered, looking surprised. "Your heart is safe." Jake didn't have time to ask what she meant. He scooped her up in his arms and ran toward his ship. She was lighter than he expected, but she held on tight, burying her face against his shoulder. They reached the new horizon just as another wave of Krex fighters screamed past the docking bay. Jake practically threw himself up the ramp, still carrying the girl. He set her down in the co-pilot's seat and strapped her in before jumping into his own chair. "Hold on tight," he told her, as his hands flew over the controls. "This might get bumpy." The ship lifted off just as a massive explosion tore through the section of the station they had just left. Jake pushed the engines to maximum power, weaving between pieces of debris and enemy fire. The little girl watched everything with wide eyes, but she didn't cry anymore. They made it to hyperspace just as the station's main reactor exploded behind them. In the quiet of hyperspace, Jake finally had a chance to really look at the child he had rescued. She was staring at him with an expression that was far too serious for someone so young. "What's your name?" he asked. She said something in Viridian that he couldn't pronounce. Then she tilted her head thoughtfully. "In your language, Luna." "I like Luna." "Luna," Jake repeated. "That's a pretty name. I'm Jake." Luna nodded solemnly. Then she said something that broke his heart and changed everything. "Jake," she said, her voice small but determined. "Will you adopt me? I have nowhere to go, no family left. But I promise, I'll be the best daughter ever. I'll help with your ship. I'll learn your language better. I'll be good. Please don't leave me alone." Jake felt tears burning his eyes. This brave little girl who had just lost everything was worried about being good enough for him. She was offering to earn her place in his life, not understanding that she had already claimed it the moment he heard her crying. He reached over and gently took her small hand in his. "Luna," he said softly, "you don't have to earn anything. You're already family." For the first time since he found her, Luna smiled. It was like watching the sun come up after a long, dark night. 2 weeks after escaping Nexus Prime, Jake's ship docked at Haven Station, one of the Coalition's administrative centers. Luna had spent most of the journey learning English from the ship's computer and helping Jake with small repairs. She was incredibly smart and seemed to understand technology in ways that amazed him. But now came the hard part, making their new family legal. Jake held Luna's hand as they walked through the sterile corridors of the Coalition Adoption Services building. The walls were white and cold, covered with symbols from dozens of different worlds. Luna stayed close to his side, her blue skin seeming paler than usual. "Remember what we practiced," Jake whispered to her. "Just tell them the truth." Luna nodded, but he could feel her nervousness. Her empathic abilities meant she was picking up on his own worry, which only made things worse. They were led to a small office where a tall, thin alien sat behind a metal desk. His nameplate read Administrator Krix Valdane, Zentari. The Zentari looked like someone had stretched a human too far. His gray skin was smooth and his large eyes were completely black. "Please sit," Administrator Valdane said in perfect English. His voice was flat and emotionless. He opened a thick file and began reading from it without looking at them. Human designation Jake Martinez, age 34. Occupation, independent cargo hauler. Previous family status, widower, 1 deceased child. Current request, adoption of Viridian minor designation. He paused and made a clicking sound with his tongue. Unpronounceable native name, human designation Luna. Jake squeezed Luna's hand. The way this alien talked about her like she was just paperwork made his anger Rise. Now then, Valdane continued, I must inform you that your request presents several complications. What kind of complications? Jake asked. Valdane finally looked up from his papers. First, humans have been coalition members for only 3 years. Your species has no established record of successfully raising non-human children. Second, Viridians are highly empathic and emotionally sensitive. They require specialized care that few species can provide. Third, there are currently 17 Viridian families who have expressed interest in adopting war orphans from their own species. Luna spoke up in a small voice. I don't want to go to strangers. Jake is my family now. Valdane's expression didn't change. Child, you have suffered trauma. You cannot make rational decisions about your future care. That is why these protocols exist. Jake felt his temper starting to slip. She saved my life too, you know. During the attack, she used her abilities to help me navigate through the damaged station. We work well together. Mr. Martinez, Valdane said coldly, your emotional attachment to this child does not qualify you as a suitable guardian. Humans are known for your impulsive nature. Child rearing requires stability and long-term planning. That did it. Jake started to stand up, but Luna's small hand on his arm stopped him. She was looking at him with those big dark eyes, silently asking him to stay calm. He took a deep breath and sat back down. What do we need to do to make this work? Jake asked through gritted teeth. Valdane consulted his papers again. You would need approval from the Viridian government in exile, a psychological evaluation from a certified xenopsychologist, character references from at least 5 coalition citizens, proof of financial stability, and completion of a cross-species parenting course that takes approximately 6 months. 6 months? Jake couldn't hide his shock, during which time the child would be placed in temporary care at a coalition youth facility. Luna made a small sound of distress. Jake looked down at her and saw that she was trembling. The thought of being separated from him after losing everyone else was terrifying her. No, Jake said firmly. She stays with me. That is not possible. Under current regulations. Then your regulations are wrong. Valdane's eyes narrowed. Mr. Martinez, I understand you mean well, but you must understand that this child's needs go far beyond what any human could provide. Viridians form deep empathic bonds with their caregivers. If that bond is broken later due to incompatibility, the psychological damage could be permanent. Jake looked at Luna, who was staring at the floor. He could see tears gathering in her eyes again. Without thinking, he reached over and gently lifted her chin so she would look at him. Luna, he said, softly, do you trust me? She nodded immediately. Do you feel safe with me? Another nod, more confident this time. Do you want to stay with me even if it means fighting all these rules and dealing with people who don't understand? Luna looked directly at Administrator Valdane, and for a moment her expression was much older than her years. Sir, she said in her careful English, I know you think humans are not good for Viridian children, but Jake found me when I was dying. He could have left me and saved himself, but he didn't. When I touch his mind, I feel no lies, only love. She turned back to Jake. Yes, I want to stay with you. You're my dad now. Those last words hit Jake like a punch to the chest. She had never called him that before. Dad. The word brought back memories of Katie, but instead of pain, he felt something warm spreading through his chest. Valdane was not impressed. Emotional testimony is not sufficient evidence of suitability. I'm afraid I must insist on following proper procedures. Then we'll follow them, Jake said, his voice steady. All of them. But Luna stays with me while we do it. That is not. Actually, it is possible. Everyone turned to see a new person entering the office. She was human, middle-aged, with short brown hair and kind eyes. She wore the uniform of Coalition Medical Services. Dr. Rachel Kim, she introduced herself. I'm the xenopsychologist assigned to this case. I've been reviewing the files, and there is a provision for temporary guardianship during the evaluation period, provided certain conditions are met. Valdane looked annoyed. Dr. Kim, that provision is rarely used and requires weekly psychological evaluations for both guardian and child, plus monthly home inspections. Dr. Kim finished. I'm prepared to conduct those evaluations personally. Jake felt hope rising in his chest. Why would you do that? Dr. Kim smiled. Because I've read your file, Mr. Martinez, and I've read Luna's preliminary psychological assessment. You two have already formed a strong bond. Separating you now would be cruel and unnecessary. She turned to Valdane. Administrator, I'm recommending temporary guardianship be granted immediately, pending completion of the full evaluation process. Valdane's expression was sour, but he couldn't argue with a medical recommendation. Very well, but any signs of incompatibility or stress in the child, and she will be removed immediately. As they filled out more paperwork, Dr. Kim pulled Jake aside. I should warn you, she said quietly, this is going to be harder than you think. There are a lot of people in the coalition who don't believe humans are ready for this kind of responsibility. You're going to face challenges I can't protect you from. Jake looked over at Luna, who was carefully writing her new human name on a form with her tongue sticking out in concentration. Doc, I lost my daughter 3 years ago to cancer. I thought I'd never be a father again. If Luna's willing to give me another chance at being a dad, I'm not going to let anyone take that away from us. Dr. Kim nodded approvingly. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. 2 hours later, Jake and Luna walked out of the building with temporary custody papers. Luna was practically glowing with happiness, her blue skin brighter than he had ever seen it. So, Jake said as they headed back to the ship, ready to learn how to fly? Luna's eyes went wide with excitement. Really? You'll teach me? Partners should know how to handle the ship, Jake said with a grin. And you're my partner now, right? Luna thought about this very seriously for a moment. Then she smiled that sunrise smile again. Yes, I'm your partner. And you're my dad. As they walked, neither of them noticed the small group of Viridian adults watching them from across the plaza. Their expressions were not friendly, and one of them was speaking quietly into a communication device. The fight for their family was just beginning. 3 months into their temporary custody arrangement, everything was going wrong. Jake sat in the pilot's chair of the New Horizon, reading the latest message from the Coalition Adoption Board. Luna was in the ship's small workshop, practicing her mechanical skills on an old circuit board. She had gotten incredibly good at fixing things, her natural Viridian intuition combining with human problem-solving techniques Jake had taught her. But none of that mattered now, due to concerns raised by the Viridian Council in exile regarding the psychological welfare of the minor in question. Jake read aloud. A formal review hearing has been scheduled. Attendance is mandatory. Luna looked up from her work. What does that mean? Jake tried to keep his voice steady. It means some important Viridians want to talk to us about whether you should stay with me. But Dr. Kim said I was doing great. She said I was happier and healthier than most kids who went through what I did. That was true. Dr. Kim's reports had been glowing. Luna was learning faster than anyone expected. Her trauma symptoms were improving, and the bond between her and Jake was clearly beneficial for both of them. But politics was more powerful than psychology. The door chime rang. Jake opened it to find Colonel Sam Carter standing outside. Sam was his old military buddy, now working as a liaison between human colonies and Coalition headquarters. He was a big man with graying hair and worried eyes. Jake, we need to talk, Sam said, stepping into the ship. He nodded to Luna with a gentle smile. Hey there, kiddo. How's the engineering coming along? I fixed 3 broken power couplings today, Luna said proudly. Dad says I'm getting really good at it. Sam's expression grew more serious when he heard her call Jake Dad. That's great, Luna. Listen, could you give your dad and me a few minutes to talk? Adult stuff. Luna nodded and went back to her work, though Jake could tell she was listening. Her empathic abilities meant she could sense the tension in the room. It's bad, isn't it? Jake asked quietly. Sam nodded. The Viridian Council is putting a lot of pressure on the Coalition. They're saying humans don't understand empathic species well enough to raise Viridian children. They want all Viridian war, Orphans placed with other Viridians or approved allied species. But Luna doesn't want that. She chose to stay with me. A traumatized child can't make rational decisions about her future, Sam said, quoting the official line. That's what they keep saying. Jake felt anger building in his chest. So, what are our options? Legally? Not many. The Coalition tends to side with member species when it comes to issues involving their own people. Sam paused, then lowered his voice even more. But there might be another way. What do you mean? Remember how humans got into the Coalition in the first place? We didn't follow their normal procedures. We made our own rules and forced them to accept us because we proved our worth. Jake frowned. You're talking about doing something outside the official channels. I'm talking about doing things the human way. Sam pulled out a small device. This is a comm relay connected to the human colonial network. I've been spreading word about your situation to every human settlement, military base, and trading. Post I can reach. Sam, what did you do? Before Sam could answer, Jake's communication panel started beeping. Then it started beeping faster. Then it was beeping so rapidly it sounded like one continuous tone. What's happening? Luna asked, looking alarmed. Jake checked the display and his jaw dropped. We're getting messages, hundreds of them, from humans all over the galaxy. He opened the first few messages and read them aloud. From the New Texas colony. Our settlement has 3 mixed species families. Happy to provide character references. From Captain Lisa Stone of the merchant vessel Free Spirit. My ship has a multi-species crew who work together like family. Jake Martinez sounds like exactly the kind of human father we need more of. The messages kept coming. Adoption stories from human families who had taken in alien refugees. Military units where humans and aliens served together as brothers and sisters. Trade crews where species differences didn't matter as long as everyone did their job. There's more, Sam said with a grin. Dr. Maya Patel, the xenopsychologist from Earth University, heard about your case. She's on her way here with a whole stack of research about human adaptability and cross-species bonding. Luna had stopped pretending to work and was listening intently. All these humans want to help us? Kid, Sam said, when humans decide someone is family, we don't give up easy. And from what I've seen, you're definitely family. Over the next 2 weeks, Haven Station became a gathering point for supporters. Dr. Patel arrived with her research data and immediately began working with Dr. Kim to prepare their case. Captain Betty Ross of the human freighter Starhawk brought a delegation of mixed crews from a dozen ships. Even civilian families made the journey, bringing children from various species who had been adopted by humans. The most surprising supporter was Commander Alex Chen of the Coalition Defense Force. He was half human, half Centauri, and had been raised by his human father after his mother died in a border conflict. The Viridian Council keeps saying humans can't understand empathic species, Alex told Jake as they prepared for the hearing. But they're wrong. Humans don't just understand empathy. You live it. You make emotional connections across any barrier. Species, language, culture. It's what makes you dangerous to enemies and precious to friends. The night before the hearing, Jake found Luna sitting by the ship's observation window, looking out at the stars. She seemed smaller than usual, and he could sense her worry. Scared? He asked, sitting down beside her. A little, she admitted. What if they say I have to go away? Jake put his arm around her shoulders. Luna, do you remember what I told you, the day we met? You're already family. That doesn't change because some people in fancy clothes say it should. But what if they make us follow their rules? Jake smiled. Then we'll have to teach them some new rules, human rules. The next morning, the Coalition Council chambers were packed. Jake had never seen so many humans in one place since leaving Earth. They filled the viewing gallery, and many more watched through live feeds from across the galaxy. The Viridian delegation sat at the formal complainants table. They were elegant beings with more elaborate silver markings than Luna's, and they wore flowing robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. Their leader, Elder Kira Moonwhisper, spoke first. Honored Council, she said in a voice like wind chimes, We come today to protect one of our children from a well-meaning but misguided attempt at cross-species adoption. Humans, despite their noble intentions, lack the emotional sophistication to properly care for empathic children. She went on to explain Viridian child-rearing practices, their need for emotional stability, and their concerns about Luna's long-term psychological development. When it was Jake's turn to speak, he stood up slowly. He wasn't a politician or a diplomat. He was just a cargo hauler who had found a scared little girl and decided to protect her. "I'm not going to pretend I know everything about raising a Viridian child," he began. 3 months ago, I'd never even met one. But I know about being a father. I know about love and protection, and never giving up on someone who needs you. He gestured toward Luna, who was sitting in the front row. That little girl has been through hell. She lost her family, her home, everything she knew. And when I found her, she wasn't looking for someone who understood Viridian culture or empathic development. She was looking for someone who wouldn't leave her behind. Jake's voice grew stronger. Elder Moon Whisper talks about emotional sophistication, but Luna chose me, not because I was sophisticated, but because I was there. Because when she needed someone to fight for her, I fought. When she needed someone to believe in her, I believed. When she needed a family, I gave her mine. He turned to address the council directly. You want to know if humans can raise empathic children? Look at what Luna has accomplished in 3 months. She's learned a new language, mastered complex, technical skills, and helped me become a better person. We didn't do that by following Viridian tradition. We did it by being family. Then Luna herself asked to speak. The council was surprised. It was unusual for children to address formal hearings, but they agreed. Luna walked to the speaker's podium. She had to stand on a small platform to reach the microphone, but when she spoke, her voice carried clearly through the chamber. My name is Luna Martinez, she said, and Jake felt his heart swell at hearing his last name with hers. 3 months ago, I was alone and scared. I thought my life was over, but my dad found me, and he taught me something important. She looked directly at Elder Moon Whisper. Honored Elder, you say humans don't understand empathy, but you're wrong. My dad doesn't just understand my feelings. He shares them. When I'm sad, he hurts too. When I'm happy, he smiles. When I'm scared, he gets brave enough for both of us. Luna's voice grew more confident. I know you want what's best for me. I know you think I should be with other Viridians. But I've touched my dad's mind every day for 3 months. His love for me is real. His promise to protect me is real. His commitment to being my family is real. She paused, looking around the chamber at all the humans who had come to support them. These people came from all over the galaxy just to help us stay together. That's not because they don't understand empath. 6 months after the adoption was finalized, Jake and Luna were back at Nexus Prime. The station had been rebuilt after the Krex attack, bigger and better than before. Luna was now officially Luna Martinez, and she wore her new last name like a badge of honor. They were delivering medical supplies to the refugee camps that had sprung up around the station. Thousands of displaced beings from worlds the Krex had attacked lived in temporary shelters, waiting for new homes or for the war to end. Luna had become something of a celebrity among the refugees. Her story of survival and adoption had spread throughout the camps, giving hope to other orphaned children. She spent her free time helping in the medical tents, using her empathic abilities to comfort trauma victims. Dad, look at this, Luna said, showing Jake a small device she had been working on. I think I can boost the power output of the medical scanners by 15%. Jake examined her work and whistled appreciatively. Luna, this is brilliant. How did you figure this out? I just listened to the machines, she said with a shrug. They sound sad when they're not working at full power. It was typical Luna logic. Her combination of empathic sensitivity and technical intuition continued to amaze everyone who worked with her. Dr. Kim had written several papers about her development, calling her a perfect example of successful cross-species adoption. But their peaceful life was about to be shattered again. The alarm started blaring at 800 hours. Jake was in the middle of teaching Luna how to calculate hyperspace jump coordinates when the station's emergency broadcasts began. All civilian vessels prepare for immediate evacuation. Krek's fleet detected approaching the system. Estimated time to arrival, 4 hours. Jake's blood went cold. The Kreks were back, and this time they had brought a much larger force. Dad? Luna's voice was small and frightened. Are we going to run again? Jake looked out the viewport at the massive refugee camps spread across the asteroid fields around the station. Hundreds of thousands of people live there now. Ships, families, entire communities that had nowhere else to go. We can't, he said quietly. There are too many people here who can't evacuate in time. Luna nodded seriously. She was reading his emotions and understanding the terrible math. The Coalition defense fleet was small and scattered. Most civilian ships weren't fast enough to escape before the Kreks arrived, and the refugee camps, they were completely defenseless. Colonel Sam Carter's voice came over Jake's personal comm. Jake, you need to get Luna out of here now. The Kreks aren't just attacking. Intelligence says they're specifically hunting for Viridian survivors. Why? Jake asked, though he dreaded the answer. We think we know why the Kreks attacked Viridian worlds in the first place. It wasn't random conquest. They were looking for something. Luna had gone very still. Her empathic abilities were picking up something Jake couldn't sense yet. Dad, she whispered, there's something down in the old sections of the station. Something ancient. It's calling to me. Sam's voice became urgent. Jake, get her away. From there. Now. But Luna was already moving toward the door. I have to see what it is. It's important. Jake caught her arm. Luna, we need to evacuate with everyone else. She looked up at him with those big, dark eyes, but now there was something else in them. A deep knowledge that seemed far older than her years. Dad, the Kreks aren't coming for the station. They're coming for me, for what I can do. What are you talking about? Luna closed her eyes and reached out with her empathic senses. There are machines down there. Old ones. Older than the Coalition. Older than the Kreks. They've been sleeping for thousands of years, but they're starting to wake up because they sense Viridian minds nearby. Understanding hit Jake like a physical blow. The Kreks attacked your people because you can control ancient technology. Not control. Communicate with it. Ask it for help. Luna's expression was determined. Dad, I think I can wake up the station's defense systems. The real ones from whoever built this place originally. Jake wanted to say no. Every instinct told him to grab Luna and run as far as they could. But he looked out at the refugee camps again, at all those families who were counting on someone to protect them. What do you need me to do? He asked. Luna smiled, and for a moment she looked like the scared little girl he had found 6 months ago. Come with me. I'm going to need my dad when I do this. They made their way through the station's lower levels, areas that had been sealed off since the reconstruction. Luna led the way confidently, following something Jake couldn't perceive. Emergency lights flickered overhead as they descended deeper into the station's core. This is it, Luna said, stopping in front of a wall that looked like any other. But when she placed her hand on it, hidden panels slid open to reveal a chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with soft blue light. It's beautiful, Jake breathed. Luna stepped into the chamber and immediately the crystals began glowing brighter. Holographic displays activated around the room, showing symbols and patterns that hurt Jake's eyes to look at directly. The builders of this station weren't just traders, Luna said, her voice echoing strangely in the crystalline space. They were guardians. They built defense systems that could protect entire sectors of space, but they needed empathic minds to operate them. She approached the largest crystal formation in the center of the room. I can feel their memories in the stones. They're trying to teach me. Luna, are you sure about this? She looked back at him, and Jake saw fear in her eyes, but he also saw determination and love. Dad, there are 50,000 people in those refugee camps. Kids like me who lost their families. I can save them, but I need to connect with these machines. What if it hurts you? What if I don't try and everyone dies? Jake realized she was right. This was what they had been building toward all along. Luna wasn't just his daughter now. She was becoming something more, something the galaxy needed. "Okay," he said, "but I'm staying right here with you." Luna nodded and placed both hands on the central crystal. The moment she made contact, the entire chamber exploded with light and sound. Jake watched in awe as data streams flowed directly into Luna's mind, teaching her things no one had known for millennia. Above them, the station began to change. Ancient weapon systems that had slept in the asteroids around Nexus Prime awakened. Defensive shields that could deflect Starkiller missiles powered up. Early warning sensors that could detect threats across multiple star systems came online. When the Krex fleet dropped out of hyperspace, they found themselves facing not a defenseless trade station, but a fortress that belonged to legends. Luna stood in the crystal chamber, her consciousness expanded across dozens of defensive platforms. Through her empathic connection to the ancient machines, she could feel their joy at finally having someone to communicate with, after eons of silence. "Dad," she said without opening her eyes, "tell Colonel Carter that the station's defenses are now fully operational, and tell him the Krex fleet is about to have a very bad day." The battle was over in less than 20 minutes. The ancient defense systems didn't just defeat the Krex fleet, they made it clear that any future attacks on Nexus Prime would be futile. The station was now one of the most heavily defended positions in Coalition space. When Luna finally disconnected from the crystal network, she collapsed into Jake's arms. She was exhausted but smiling. "Did we win?" she asked weakly. "We won," Jake confirmed, holding her tight. "You saved everyone." "We saved everyone," Luna corrected. "I couldn't have done it without you here." As word of what had happened spread through the galaxy, Jake realized their lives had changed forever. Luna wasn't just a war orphan anymore. She was the key to technologies that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. But more importantly, she was still his daughter. And he would protect her from anyone who tried to use her gift for the wrong reasons. The human way had proven itself once again. When faced with impossible odds, they didn't surrender. They found a way to turn their greatest vulnerability, their love for others, into their greatest strength, and sometimes that was enough to save the world. 1 year later, the New Horizon looked very different from the cargo ship Jake had once operated alone. The main hold had been converted into living quarters for 6 children from 4 different species. The galley had been expanded to accommodate various dietary needs. And the bridge now had multiple stations designed for smaller hands and different types of sensory input. Luna, now 8 years old by human standards, stood at the navigation console teaching a young Zentari boy named Pip how to plot hyperspace coordinates. Her blue skin had taken on a healthier glow over the past year, and the silver markings on her arms had grown more intricate as she matured. "Remember," she told Pip patiently, "you have to account for gravitational drift from the binary stars. Your people's math skills are better than mine, so this should be easy for you." Pip's large black eyes focused intensely on the calculations. The Zentari were known for their analytical minds, but Pip had been traumatized by seeing his parents killed in a Krex raid. Luna's gentle teaching style was helping him regain confidence in his abilities. Jake watched from the captain's chair, marveling at how natural Luna was with the other children. After the battle at Nexus Prime, they had been approached by Coalition Social Services with a unique proposition. Would they consider taking in other war orphans who needed specialized care? It had been Luna's idea to say yes. "Dad," she had said, "we have this big ship and we know how to make a family work. Maybe we can help other kids find families too." So the New Horizon had become something unprecedented in Coalition space, a multi-species foster family ship. Jake and Luna traveled between worlds, not just delivering cargo anymore, but delivering hope. They would take in children who were considered difficult to place and help them heal while searching for permanent homes. Sometimes the children stayed for weeks, sometimes for months. A few, like Pip and the others currently on board, were becoming permanent family members. "Jake Martinez to the communication center," came Dr. Kim's voice over the ship's intercom. "We have another placement request." Jake found Dr. Kim in the ship's small but well-equipped medical bay. She had become a regular part of their crew, helping to evaluate potential placements and providing psychological support for their ever-changing family. "What have we got this time?" Jake asked. Dr. Kim pulled up a file on her screen. "Her name is Kira. She's a crystalline, one of the silicon-based species from the Veil Nebula. About 5 years old, though crystallines age differently than most species." Jake studied the image on the screen. Kira looked like a small humanoid figure made of living gemstone. Her body was translucent purple crystal with internal lights that pulsed gently. "What's her story?" "The Kreks attacked her homeworld 6 months ago. Crystallines communicate through harmonic resonance. Basically, they sing to each other. But Kira hasn't made a sound since the attack. Other crystalline families have tried to care for her, but she won't respond to anyone." Jake frowned. "Why do they think we can help?" Dr. Kim smiled. "Because Luna has already volunteered. She says she can feel Kira's song, even though Kira won't sing it out loud. Luna thinks she can teach her to trust music again. That was typical of Luna. Over the past year, her empathic abilities had grown stronger and more precise. She could sense emotional patterns in species that didn't even register on standard psychological evaluations." "Where is she now?" Jake asked. "Haven Station. She's been staying in a medical facility, but it's not helping. She needs a family environment." Jake nodded. "Set course for Haven Station." 3 days later, they met Kira at the Coalition Medical Center. She was smaller than Jake had expected, about the size of a human 3-year-old. Her crystal body was dim, the internal lights barely flickering. She sat in a corner of the children's ward, motionless and silent. Luna approached her slowly, as she had learned to do with traumatized children. Instead of speaking, Luna began to hum softly, a lullaby that Jake recognized from her own childhood. It was a Viridian song about stars finding their way home. Kira's internal lights pulsed once faintly. Luna sat down a few feet away and continued humming. Gradually, other children on the ship joined her. Pip added a mathematical rhythm that complemented the melody. Zara, a young felinoid girl, contributed a purring harmony. Even Benny, a human boy they had rescued from a mining accident, whistled along. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Kira's lights began to pulse in rhythm with their song. When Luna finally spoke, her voice was gentle and musical. "Hello, Kira, my name is Luna, and this is my family. We sing together because singing makes the dark places brighter. Would you like to come home with us?" For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Kira stood up and walked toward Luna. When she was close enough, she reached out and touched Luna's hand. The touch created a harmonic resonance that Jake felt in his bones. It was like hearing a crystal bell ringing in perfect pitch. Kira was singing, not with her voice but with her very essence. Luna smiled and sang back, her Viridian harmonics blending with Kira's crystalline tones. "She says she's been waiting for someone who could hear her real voice," Luna translated for the others. "She wants to come home with us." That had been 3 months ago. Now Kira was a bright, laughing member of their family. Her crystal body sparkled with rainbow lights when she was happy, and she had taught the other children how to create harmonic patterns that could make their makeshift home feel truly alive. But their success hadn't gone unnoticed. Jake was reading the latest reports from Coalition headquarters when Colonel Carter contacted him with disturbing news. "Jake, you need to be careful," Sam warned during their private communication. "There are some people in the Coalition who are getting nervous about what you're doing." "What do you mean?" "The Martinez foster program has been too successful. You've placed over 40 children in permanent homes, and every single placement has worked out perfectly. Some of the traditionalists are starting to worry that humans are changing adoption practices too rapidly." Jake felt a familiar anger rising. So helping kids find families is a bad thing now? To some people, yes, they're saying that human methods are too informal, too emotional. They want more oversight, more regulations, more bureaucracy. "Let me guess," Jake said bitterly. "They want to shut us down. Not shut down, but heavily regulate. They want to assign coalition monitors to your ship, require pre-approval for all placements, and limit you to human children only." Jake looked Out at the bridge where Luna was teaching Kira how to use the navigation computer, while Pip calculated optimal routes, and the other children watched in fascination. They were from 6 different worlds, but they were family in every way that mattered. Sam, we can't let them do this. I know, and that's why I'm calling. There's going to be a vote in the Coalition Council next month. They're calling it the Standardization of Adoption Practices Act, but everyone knows it's really the Stop the Humans Act. What can we do? The same thing you did before. Fight. Show them what you've accomplished. Make them understand that what you're doing isn't dangerous. It's necessary. That night, Jake called a family meeting in the ship's common area. All 6 children gathered around, along with Dr. Kim and the ship's other adults. He explained the situation honestly, the way he had learned to do with Luna. So they want to break up our family? Asked Zara, her cat-like ears flattened against her head in distress. They want to make rules that would make it harder for us to help other kids, Jake clarified. But we're not going to let that happen. Luna stood up, her expression serious. Dad, I think it's time we showed the galaxy what a real family looks like. What do you mean? Luna looked around at her siblings, and Jake could see her making a decision that was both brave and terrifying. I mean, we go to the Coalition Council ourselves, all of us, and we tell them our stories. 2 weeks later, the Coalition Council chambers were once again packed with observers. But this time, it wasn't just humans in the gallery. Representatives from dozens of species had come to hear about the Martinez family and their unprecedented success with cross-species adoption. Jake stood at the speaker's podium with his 6 children arranged beside him. Luna held Kira's crystalline hand while Pip stood proudly next to Zara. Benny, now a confident 11-year-old, had his arm around the shoulders of their newest addition, a shy Aquarian girl named Coral, whose gills required a special breathing apparatus. Honored Council, Jake began. A year ago, my daughter Luna and I proved that love doesn't recognize species boundaries. Today, we want to show you what that love can build. He gestured to the children beside him. These aren't just kids we've helped place in homes. They're my children. Each one chose to become part of our family, and each one has made our family stronger. Luna stepped forward to speak. Counselors, you're worried that human adoption methods are too informal, but you're missing the point. Families aren't created by paperwork. They're created by choice, by commitment, by the decision to love someone no matter what. Pip spoke next, his mathematical mind organizing his thoughts with precision. The statistical success rate of Martinez family placements is 100%. No other adoption agency in coalition space can claim that record. Logic suggests that their methods are not just effective but optimal. One by one, each child told their story, how they had been lost, how they had been found, how they